to what they're already calling the #1 rugby league podcast on the Sports Show's social podcast network, and that's not because we're the only one on there currently. When they sign, James Graham or something, they'll be below that. But for the time being, we are #1. It's all about line. That's the business of broadcasting.
Where are we in the charts in South Africa?
I don't think we were. Did you download it?
I did download it in South Africa. I'll download it.
7 o'clock we'll find out when I get the email through. Welcome to 4020 Live, the post-Grand Final edition, the domestic season. I would say so, but the Women's Championship Grand Final apparently is this week.
Okay.
So, Hull are in it. I don't know who else is, but good luck to them. Do we start this week with news or the matches? Because the news... Well, we'll start with the news then. We'll build up to saying, that Grand Final was rubbish, wasn't it? And disagree. But you can get in touch on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, or in the chat live on YouTube. And if you listen to the podcast, you can join us in the comments there as well.
Have you been drinking a lot of fizzy drinks today?
No, surprisingly not. But I think I'm just...
Are you in a belligerent mood?
Yes. I mean, opening the paper today, remember a couple of weeks ago in the paper it said Wakefield had a new owner and Darryl Powell was coming in. Well, apparently the takeover is edging ever closer, so he's not in charge yet, the new owner. But sources close to this programme say Darryl Powell's already been at Bellevue a few times, so we'll see what happens there. We're preparing for our first campaign outside the top flight since 1998.
Is that the news?
Apparently. And Will Dagger's gone.
News is we've got Tim
Tams. What's happened with Tunnets Camera Wafers? Now we're on a proper network with advertising. They could sponsor the podcast now.
Well, view that as DAZN.
Yeah.
And Tunnets Caramel Wafers as Sky Sports.
Right.
And Digestives as TNT.
We're
trying a bidding war.
Which one of us is KSI and which one's Tommy Fury? I can't believe that made it onto the main BBC News website this week. And not even proper boxing match. It's like if you covered Cumbria versus the Wales Presidents 13 and made it into a big thing. But one of them, Kyle Lamer, was going to drop goal.
I've seen it on social media.
I thought Nathan Collins was going to hit him on the head yesterday when the ball went into the commentary box.
No.
Not in general. I mean,
I thought you meant he said something he disagreed.
There's a bit of a size difference between the two. I mean, perhaps DAZN would put that up as a fight. I mean, I'd back Nathan Collins to be fair. But
They're nice, aren't they?
They're all right. They're like penguins. Just saying,
no, they're not.
Just out Australia. Rugby League part of the programme coming soon. Andy has been on Twitter. On the back of the all matches available live announcement, Super League seems to be confirming Magic Weekend is on the 2024 calendar. Any thoughts on where, when in the season, and how we should measure its success given how the Thunder story played out? Well, there's 2 or 3 things to talk about there immediately, isn't it? Every game is going to be on the telly next year. Sky are going to be bringing them to us. There's also the potential for a deal with free-to-air television, of course. We're coming off the back of the Grand Final, which was shown all over the world on 5 continents.
We tried to work
We're trying
out.
to name them.
There are 7, so who in the Antarctica didn't get to see it?
I mean, I've got an A-level in geography.
Is it the Arctic or Antarctica that's a continent? I can never remember.
Antarctica.
I think it was,
is a continent. And
yeah.
Surely they weren't watching it in Antarctica.
They might have done. What else was on?
So what was the other continent?
Australia come down to it or something.
South America.
South America.
No, surely the Brazilians, because they all love rugby league.
But surely,
South
if your podcast is
Africa.
#1 in
Kazakhstan, Mexico, wait, is that North or South?
Central,
So every game's going to be on Sky, plus the potential of a free-to-air deal, as we saw with that press release that came out on Saturday.
which you'd hope would be Channel 4.
You would hope so.
Although, talking to some of the people that broadcast on Channel 4, they don't think they'll get it again.
I wasn't sure about that. Did it say it would include free to air, or
It
it
said-
Do you want me to find?
it left it open as there being an option?
Yeah, the option is there.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily see that as it would necessarily be the case. But
Here's the press release. It's in small letters, so I'm going to have to find it on there. As part of the agreement, Rugby League Commercial will retain and enhance the ability to attract new viewers with the continuation of free-to-air broadcast opportunities, as well as through a dedicated Super League-owned streaming platform. Further details will be confirmed.
So that's hourly.
so opportunities of free to air.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously they've not done it.
And enhanced means, I think, more games. So if it was going to go back to Channel 4, which we all hope it would, they'd have more than the 10 games. Because
And if I'm a broadcaster and I know that Sky are going to produce a game which I can have, and we know how quality their productions are, then all you've got to do is top and tail it and stick Adam Hills on the middle of it, or Helen Skelton, or whoever, Sam Tompkins. Now, what happens with Magic Weekend, which appears to be confirmed in that. I think
it's
we already knew, but
it's confirmed as a fixture. The problem is, when do you have it, and now where do you have it? Because if you're moving the Challenge Cup back, you're going to be into when football grounds will need to either be reseeding or actually the season will have started. So does that rule them out? The big debate around Newcastle is how much of a huge wasted opportunity is this for the sport as a whole, because we did take the opening of the World Cup there. We have had a number of Magic Weekends which we kept being told were successful there. We have got a thriving junior product there and some senior product, but if there is going to be no Newcastle, why would you take Magic Weekend there? It's a I think that's a huge blow for the sport, because it's a regional team more than, you know, a team in a city or a town.
Agreed. If you were the RFL, that wouldn't be the club or one of the clubs that if you had to choose one or two, that wouldn't be one of the two, would it? I dare say the loss of London Scullers, and no disrespect to them, but
I'll be disrespectful. We get
there is an
more
existing
reaction.
there's an existing London club,
Yeah.
London Broncos, who've now obviously, as we know, remarkable that they've now made a promotion into Super League. But the Scholars have been in that League One forever and a day, and they've not brought a huge amount to the sport. So from that perspective, you know, the argument has been, what do League One clubs actually bring to the sport when you compare them to, say, National Conference League clubs with whole junior setups and the level of income that they get from central distribution. However, Newcastle wouldn't have been one of those, would it? As you've rightly said, it's a regional team, really. And I think this is the problem, though, with the strategy of trying to expand, is that it's reliant on individual clubs, individual owners, and there isn't that strategic involvement with professional clubs. So the RFL would have been involved, presumably, in community setup and pathways and structures, but actually are not pumping money into that region, as they may have done in decades previously.
No development officers.
That's what I mean. But previously, we probably would have had regional development officers over the country.
But also, it's
and
that word you use,
contractors.
strategy. What is the expansion strategy? You know, if you're going to look at Newcastle, is important to us for a number of reasons, because it's almost a bridge that touches the sort of the areas of Cumbria and
the Tyne Bridge.
The Tyne Bridge, very good. So you want it as an important part of your sport. What are you doing to underpin that? What if necessary dispensation you give that? And we can have the same conversation about London. It's all very well saying London is strategically important for the sport. You need a team in the capital, and IMG standing up and saying London and the women's game are two priorities. What does that mean? How are you going to do it? Are you going to convince the rest of the clubs that they need to in some way sacrifice something to make these areas successful? Because it's never happened in 133 years.
But arguably now with the IMG scoring, their geographic position gives them slightly enhanced scoring, albeit one small category. But there won't be central support for those clubs. That's for the game to decide, isn't it?
For me, that's for IMG to decide, not the game, and that's where we've got it wrong.
Well, no, it's for
if the game's
Rochdale and Workington and all these
and again,
but it's a member club organisation, isn't it? And
that's
so
what you've got to change.
The members have to decide. Actually, we need to step back, and we need somebody else to run the sport. But that has to be bought in initially by the clubs to relinquish. And why would you, if you were a club chairman, why would you relinquish that?
Because you're not. All your returns are diminishing and will continue to do. And you have to at some point put faith in a governing body to say we can bake a bigger pie, and if we do that and you allow us to do that, and you might, you know, not like some of the measures to get to that bigger pie, but unless we bake one,
I agree with that.
Your existence is in danger.
But that's why Super League came about, or the separation of Super League came about, didn't it, from the RFL? Did it work? The answer to that was probably no, because they've come back together. Yeah,
I did. Well, that again.
But now we've brought IMG in.
Petty politicking was behind the cause of that and spending money that ultimately they knew they didn't have and couldn't have factored in the fact that there would be COVID as well. But
they brought a bloke in, didn't they, to sort of do the work for them in effect, and it didn't work. That would be my argument back to that. It hasn't worked, but
he didn't have universal support when he came, and that was part of the problem. Unless you've got that, he's doing a job with one hand tied behind his back. I think the other thing that we should acknowledge is that the decision of Newcastle is not really a rugby league decision. It's a rugby union decision,
and it's very important that distinction's made.
And not enough people. There was a lot written about strategically, how important it has been for rugby league. But when you have single owners of clubs and you're totally dependent on the money they put in, and that single owner saw a value in rugby league, but his investment was in rugby union, and the overall group company, the losses are across both teams. Then when Thunder get relegated and it's another cost that's got to come out of an organisation that's making such a loss that the main cash cow, the union team, is on the edge of going into administration, it's not a rugby league decision. Where League One goes from here, obviously 4 of the teams that are in it have already come out and made statements saying basically we don't want to travel to Cornwall. I did think Hunslet's statement was strange because I thought the first part of it was great. We've got every sympathy with the people in Newcastle. We wish them all the best. We hope that they're going to be looked after, and it's terrible for the game. The second half of their statement was all about we hate expansion.
We understand protectionism, but the simple fact is that a third tier in a professional game is now unsustainable, especially with only 8 clubs. We would now urge the RFL and all championship clubs to reconsider their conference proposal.
I get that. It then goes into about expansion though. We hate expansion. We don't think expansion is right. And you go, well, Newcastle was an expansion area, so you can't on one hand say...
I think the list of clubs that have, as we did a few weeks ago, those clubs that have been and gone, the Oxfords and the whatever else.
They didn't really come though. There was no particular, again, it was almost like if you ring us up and you want a franchise and you put 75 grand down, you can be in our competition. We didn't do anything to support that.
This is the point
clubs.
This is the point I was trying to make earlier. Is that if we are as a sport going to expand, the whole sport has to accept that money has to be pumped into that as an expansion, and whether that's other clubs having to sacrifice income in order to deliver it, but it's seeing the bigger picture. You're doing it for a reason, and that's to expand TV revenue that you're going to get on a future deal because you're expanding your geographic spread. That's why you do it. It's not, I don't know, but it costs millions, doesn't it? You don't launch a club.
It's not so much it costs millions. You have to build in a time factor. You have to be able to. I mean, the great thing about London getting promoted is that, as was put on social media in the lead up to the game, there isn't one player from the north of England in that team. So yes, there's some great recruitment from the Elite One when it finished, and Corey Norman, Dean Farr, and everybody's talking about what they brought to this run that's taken them to where they are, and they clearly have. But the bulk of that squad are nobody's born below, nobody's born above Leicester, I think. So when you looked at the way they played and the core of their team is talent that's been developed, that's taken 20 odd years. This is like the second wave of talent after the Louis McCarthy, Scarsbrooks, and so unless you're prepared to accept that a dispensation needs to be made to allow that talent to come through, even if it's not a financial one, if it's a non-relegation one.
But this is where the IMG plan, without the automatic promotion relegation, will help clubs like
absolutely.
That, won't it? And it's that criteria, that assessment criteria, is not fixed in stone. That might change year on year.
How long have we been talking about what is League One? What is it there for? And our esteemed colleague Mark Wilson tweeted the other day, as he said on this programme years ago, that we may as well just have a division for all the full-time teams.
I think actually,
and then a division for all the other teams.
If there was a copyright, I think I may have said that.
Well, Phil said it. Mark said it. He's on telly.
I used to bang on about that all the time.
He's on telly now.
Yeah,
so
that we were saying at the time that you could get up to 16 full-time teams, and that was then sustainable. You would possibly even start with 2 conferences of 8 or move to, but yeah, it's like oil and water, full-time and part-time, and you can have the choice. You know, nobody's forcing you to be one or the other, and if you want to be the best club in the part-time division, you need a reward for that, be that partly financial, be it, you know, big trophies that mean things, but again,
hang on, I've got some breaking news. Wait there, Phil, because a source close to this programme downstairs tells me that Salford have just made a new signing, and it's the homesick Nelly MacDonald. He's the anti-Joel Moon.
excellent.
Qu'est-ce que c'est what?
Have they announced that because Andy Ackers is leaving?
I don't know. If you
We were told that Salford would sign Nelly MacDonald, which is why Leeds had made him a free agent, because they hadn't got any money to sign him because he'd got a 4-year deal.
So imagine if he went to Salford then.
What about Brodie Kraft then?
Still rumoured to be on the M62 heading towards a West Yorkshire city that we might be sitting in.
The anti-Joel Moon. Anyway, sorry, you were talking about League One.
No.
I thought I'd give people that news, all the people watching.
I was merely saying that I think that if we're honest and realistic about what we are, and I think part of the problem we've got at the moment is we actually don't know who we are. We've lost our identity. We used to be northern industrial working class. Everybody likes to look down on us a little bit. We were happy with that. We knew our place. We probably had a little bit a delusion of grandeur about the second most watched spectator sport, and we deserve the same kind of coverage of other sports that were bigger than us. But we knew who we were, and I don't think we do know who we are anymore. And I think we're in that period of the world has changed, and whether we like it or not, we need to change. But we don't know what we need to change into, or somebody needs to make some very serious decisions about what we look like going forward to make us sustainable. That can't be in the hands of the clubs.
How do you wrestle the power that the clubs have off them?
You can only do it constitutionally.
That's what I mean. I think that's.
And I don't know. But constitutions can be changed.
They can, but obviously you have to get them to buy in
Do you have
to
to bribe,
changing it.
Do you have to bribe them to? You have to give them
Well,
cash and say, here's some cash.
it's like everything, isn't it? You're always going to have a certain amount of clubs that will sign up to that because they will benefit from it. You're always going to have a proportion of clubs that always won't because they're going to be disadvantaged by it. There'll be some clubs in the middle that will determine which way it goes, and it's how, as a governing body, you negotiate that passage. But it's not impossible. It has been done in other sports. The thing about the formation of the Premier League in football was that was 5 clubs that basically held the rest of the game to ransom, and the rest of the game suddenly realised we can't do without these 5 clubs.
We've already heard Derek talk about, what did he call it?
I tend not to listen when he says
a new form of rugby league,
Yes.
which is a splinter
Ultimate
competition,
rugby.
ultimate
yeah, but that's
rugby.
because
Yeah.
he was annoyed with the referee.
I think he was drunk.
But
Sorry.
the point on Derek and Lee is, had Derek Beaumont been born in Hunslet, in Oldham, in Workington, they would now be the Leopard and have won the Challenge Cup. It's just by dint of the fact he was born in Lee and he's got money that they're where they are. Otherwise, they'd be in League One or whatever. So this whole dreaming of being in Super League nonsense is exactly that. It doesn't have it.
But it's also
Football, it doesn't
if
happen either.
we're independent on here, but we could draw up a list of clubs that would be sustainable in Super League over the next 5 years. There aren't that many.
How many?
No, but there aren't that many.
About 3 or 4,
So
yeah.
There
let's
aren't
be
that many in Super League.
But let's be realistic. Let's look at some teams that are struggling in Super League that don't fulfil the criteria to be Super League. Let's look at some teams that would claim that they would love to be in Super League and be honest with themselves and with them and say, but what can you actually bring to make yourself sustainable? And actually, the problem starts to solve itself. It's just the element of realism.
I agree with what you say. You
and
just need somebody to grasp the nettle though and run with it, and get the clubs to buy in and run with it, and then follow a plan. But surely with IMG,
And it's all
that's
money.
part
But
of
it's
having
money,
a plan,
isn't
isn't it?
It's all money.
Yeah.
You've got to make it worth their while to play at the level that they are sustainable at by saying, and with that comes an amount of money that will keep you, solvent.
We're talking about expansion clubs. The introduction of Cornwall I've never been able to get my head around it.
Well, again, did Eric go on holiday there once or something? Because he owns Hemel.
It started in
They are
Hemel.
Hemel.
It started in Hemel. Was going to be in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Hunslet and all the rest of them, never mind travelling to Cumbria and Cornwall, were travelling to Ottawa. And then it became Cornwall, and it, to me, has just landed from the moon. there's no strategic direction as to why it's in Cornwall, and again, I'm not trying to put Cornwall down, but where is the big picture? Why have we got a club in Cornwall?
Well, because it's stick a pin in the map expansion, isn't it? The interesting thing with Cornwall is that they seem to have found 1,000 fans for virtually all of their home games now, a regular core of support, which is above a lot of the clubs in League One. So now you've created something, you need to nurture it. Because otherwise we're going back to what the hell was the point of Toronto?
Yeah, it'll probably finish in a couple of years and it'll be all lost again.
And everybody, we'll have gone, well, what was the point of clubs making themselves bankrupt going to Cornwall? Getting a load of fans in that part. What are we doing underpinning Cornwall to get more open age rugby played in that part of the world, to get more juniors playing in that part of the world? Are we going to take Magic Weekend somewhere to the southwest to bolster Cornwall? Are we taking it to Exeter?
No, we're not.
No, but
we're never going to do. Unless you can get somebody to bid for it and pay a load of money, then it'll go wherever that money goes, because it's all about the money. So if you almost got to start with a clean slate and imagine the sport didn't exist, and you were going to create a new sport and decide, right, where do we want to be? Well, you want to be in big cities, and if you then think, I've actually got an existing sport, right? Well, where are the well-established teams, clubs, whatever, successful clubs, right? Well, we need those in, and then we need to add in from there, and it's that sort of picture that you need to get the clubs to buy in order to relinquish power.
What will be interesting is to see what we do with London, because if London are now free from immediate relegation, and they'll still have to ticking off boxes to ensure that they are, but I've not been to Wimbledon yet. I'm told it's a very serviceable stadium. It's something again that I think for all the off-field things that you need to have, they'll have most of them. Whereas I think if they were at Trail Finders, they probably wouldn't have done, because they found that with Rugby Union that they couldn't get promoted because it wasn't deemed to be a top-flight facility. So let's assume that they're ticking off boxes off the field. They now are in the division that they need to be into, ticking off boxes on the field. I think there'll be investors out there who will come forward and say, if I'm going to put my money in and you're not going to tell me I'm going to be relegated next year, and you're looking at a pool of talent and we can build, because I think the centre of excellence is absolutely vital. That if Scholars are no longer a semi-professional team, then we need a regional centre of excellence for the south of England that's going to draw the best players into the London Broncos. And you're going to site that at Wimbledon if you can, or in and around Wimbledon, and be part of that London Broncos club. You may even start negotiations with London Roosters so that they become your wheelchair element. The London Broncos women's team won their championship, so again that's another box ticked and another supply of talent. If David Hughes doesn't have to shoulder the economic implications all on his own, and even maybe some of the people that own Wimbledon now start saying, but I can see a return on my investment, then suddenly we are building something that is sustainable. That's how you've got to look at it. Not that even it's an expansion debate or traditional debate.
That's market driven and not centrally driven though, isn't it?
Would you rename London to Wimbledon?
Yes, or whatever the borough is that they're in.
Merton.
Is it Merton?
Mrs. Merton.
Merton Broncos. Yeah. No, I would give them a defined identity, yes, because things that are given the moniker London tend not to succeed.
Yeah, the ice hockey team didn't work. The Knights from goodness, how many years ago and stuff. So yeah.
The American football team.
Onyx, yeah.
The difficulty is they keep moving around, so do they keep changing the name? I don't know how long they've got a deal at Wimbledon.
But I think if they're a Super League club that know that they've got it for, let's say, 3 years, because I think that's, the grading is not going to change sufficiently to knock them out of being. They're nearer to being a Grade A club than a Grade C club by getting promotion. So let's assume 3 years at the very minimum. They've got a little bit of time to put their house even more in order. I would say you've got to go to Wimbledon and say, right, we're sustainable now. We're in the top flight. You're going to be getting your Wigans and St Helens and Leeds down here.
Stadiums could be on telly every other week, so you're advertising both.
So the crowds will automatically go up by virtue of even the number of away fans that are coming. That'll bring more of the home crowd in. You need to allocate some of your budget to a bit better marketing or making a day of it or whatever it might be. Certainly in the borough that we're in, being one of those sporting clubs that people suddenly realise is on their doorstep, Once you begin doing that, I think you can get external investment, and that changes the picture of rugby league in London. This could be a big moment, but we need to decide how big we want it to be.
So all the games are going to be on Sky next year. We know this. The interesting thing about the Sky deal is that it pointedly mentions the fact it's showing the 3 grand finals, the men, the women's, the wheelchair, and we'll come on to the wheelchair grand final yesterday later. There is no deal for the Championship or League One or whatever it's going to be. So those clubs, I don't know how much Viaplay paid. I assume it was nothing.
Nothing.
So.
No, I think they may have paid something, and clearly they paid the production costs.
I assume the next TV deal is going to be worth the same or less, even if there is a TV deal, which I would think, well, who out there is left now? And with Viaplay exiting the market and TNT showing no interest in rugby league, apart from some made-up stories.
There's 100 redundancies.
But also without the carrot of automatic promotion out of a competition, a second tier competition, why would you want to broadcast it? And I get all the arguments about it's a great quality and all the rest of it, and it's entertaining. It is all that, but unfortunately, wheelchair and women's will come before Championship League One.
And if you disagree with the politics of that, well, it doesn't matter because that's the way everything's going. So tough. It's going to take. I don't know what you do with the Championship and League One in terms of broadcasting.
I think it's down to clubs now to try and get some money in themselves. That we've said before that ice hockey clubs do, and they still own the rights to their games, and if nobody else is taking them up, they need to put on a streaming service and try and get some money in that way. Our league needs to decide what it is. Is it now going to be showing predominantly Super League games every weekend, or is there an avenue there? But who's going to pay the cost of production?
Well, the Sky production, Sky will pay the production for all the Super League games,
but not the Championship.
No, absolutely not.
What happened to Cornwall's games all being on our league? That lasted about 3 weeks, didn't it? So Sky are going to show all the games now, assuming that because clubs are self-serving gits and they're going to play 3 games at the same time on a Friday night. Have we got enough commentators now? Have we got enough match officials to cover 3 televised? I mean, you're getting rid of the in-goal officials.
Video referee on every game.
In-goal judges, that's gone. They're gone now in Super League. Don't need them because we've got video referee every game. How are we going to?
It will be staffed. I'm hoping. I'm hoping that
Don't
we
leave
won't,
the podcast.
we won't have. No, I'm hoping that we won't have 3 games on Friday and 4 games on Friday, like we've always had. Do you think that's not going to change?
Well, good luck turning round to Gary Hetherington and saying all this corporate that you've built up over all the years, you've got to tell them that they're not playing on a Friday night now.
Yeah, but I know. But this is again the clubs are dictating.
Hull KR have got a very successful Friday night now with Craven Street. Most clubs tend to play. Hull have already moved to Saturday afternoon. That's good. Wakefield tended to keep their Sunday slot, but they're not in Super League anymore. No, I don't think you'll be able to.
So where's the benefit in broadcasting all 6 games if 3-4 games are on Friday night, all back to back?
Unless you have red zone. But,
well, again, are we big enough to have red zone? I think it's a fantastic idea. Will enough people watch it to make it? Because what
red zone? I don't know
it's
red
the
zone.
NFL on a Sunday. So how many games kick off at 6? About 8 or something.
Yeah, they're different time zones, but a lot of games kick off at the same time.
The evening there's less. There's like 6 games. But they have them. There's a program called Red Zone. It starts at 6 UK time, finishes at 1 a.m. and they show the matches where something is happening.
You
or
can
something
switch.
might happen.
Yeah, they have split
sometimes
screens.
If there's 2 things happening, they show 2 games. If there's 3 games, they have 3 boxes on the screen, and a very excited American shouts at you. But it's great entertainment.
It is fantastic. But
pitching to be him on Sky. You're watching Sky.
But I don't know how much interest there would be in rugby league. But I do think that's a workable model because your pictures come in and then a central point says, oh, we now go to Huddersfield where there's been this amazing try by Tommy Makinson or whatever. And then you switch to, but we go back to our main game, which is Wigan, and hang on a minute, we're just going to, Castleford where...
On the Champions League is the better example for people who watch football. On BT used to, I don't know if TNT still do, they'd have all the matches on at once on one channel, and they would go to wherever something.
You have a main game, and that is where your bulk audience is. But then on a separate channel, which could be a YouTube type channel, you have the feeds of the other games coming in. I think the fact that they're saying every game each round will be covered doesn't mean that every game will be on a Sky platform. I think that they're telling you that at the moment because Sky clearly want to be seen as a rugby league, getting a return on their investment. But I think maybe one game a week is going to be spun out to either our league or a terrestrial broadcaster.
Yeah, I think the advantage from the RFL's point of view is they don't have to pay the production costs through our league, do they? So they can probably sell season tickets for a club. To if you buy your home season ticket, you need to probably fund something or find something for your away game. So you'd probably be able to buy an away season ticket through our league and watch the footage that's produced by Sky, but you watch it through our league.
But I think a lot of it will be central. Technically, will be centrally. The pictures will come in, and they may well have, like the red zone commentator tells you where you're going next, and it could be captioned up as well when it comes in. And the cost is. Putting some cameras in grounds, but the other question that has been asked is, well, what happens with Catalan? Because nobody can afford apparently to televise Catalan games now. Under the terms of the agreement, we're going to see every home Catalan game.
Good job, London won, isn't it?
So I'm assuming that.
That'll be a French or Spanish production team.
Or will it just be some static cameras that are bringing sufficient quality of picture in for the feed to be in Wilmslow or.
As much as it is better if a commentator is live on the ground,
I don't
they
think
don't need to be there.
I don't think we're going to have that. AI generated
going back to match
captions.
officials, I don't think it'll be an issue.
That's okay.
I don't think there'll be an issue.
You're back.
They'll be able to staff it. I'm not back.
Nobody
spoke to me about me being back.
I've not put you on our new website yet, just in case you.
Head of video referees.
Here's Kevin with important questions. Are Channel 4 still doing Rugby League next season, or don't we know yet?
Channel 4 don't know yet.
How come Castle and Wakefield always had a 3:30 Sunday kick-off? Pits?
Yeah.
Because the pitch shut then. Didn't Hull KR kick off at 3:15?
Yeah.
Which I assume was the Dogs. But as you say, heavy industry isn't there anymore.
Exactly.
So Sky, that's exciting. Hopefully there's a free-to-air deal done. Hopefully sooner rather than later it's announced.
Well, it's said in the autumn. And as the clocks go back in 2 weeks, I suspect we can't wait that much longer.
I hope we.
The other thing is they're going to have the fixtures out, aren't they? For the big, normally second week November.
And I would.
And it's pointless bringing them out unless you know what the broadcast agreement.
Oh well, yeah, because otherwise you're changing it and people moan that they've already booked.
And if you've got every game in every round and you're changing every game the minute you've announced it, you won't sell season tickets.
I would also insist that my highlights partner puts out their programme as early as possible in agreement with the deal with Sky, because it's a complete waste of time at the minute.
There was something else that you may have even brought this up. I can't remember because lots happened since Saturday night. About clips on social media, and that whilst we'll talk about the content of the grand final, there wasn't a lot of exciting things within that 80 minutes. The most exciting single piece of action was Tom Johnson's tackle on Jai Field just before half time.
Just before he went bashing into the balls. Yeah.
Where was that on social media?
I mean, some people working at the game were busy tweeting about other matches rather than the one they were at. So, but no, it's. I don't know what we do with.
But that's not that. That's cheap, isn't it? That is not a cost. There's no cost implication. No. But that was arguably one of the, tackles, if not the tackle of the season. But nobody saw it.
I was winning the man of the match because there was very little to pick out of the bugs, which we'll come through in a bit. Was there any other news?
Yeah, Blackfred have.
Extended their
just on League
Leeds
One.
have got a new kit for next.
Yeah, I was going to mention that one.
Just on League One. I mean,
Nanny McDonald's not modelling it.
I think one of the suggestions might be. One of the suggestions might be that you include reserve teams in the structure.
Yeah.
I think there's some merit in that because I think if you are Hunslet and one of your fixtures is against Leeds, then you'll get a crowd.
Well, they usually play them as a warm up, don't they?
Yeah, I think if you're Oldham and one of your fixtures is against Wigan, it's a marketable proposition. Yeah. And the Reserves League hasn't worked. With all due respect to Wigan,
Wigan and Saints and Warrington and whoever else is in that who want to be part of it, then I would imagine that you're gonna get a regular game.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get at a standard it's a decent standard for your developing players, aren't you? So I think that would work personally.
There's also not an issue with promotion and relegation because in the Spanish league system in football, Barcelona bet and Real Madrid Castilla play in that league and can't get promoted to the division in which their parent club is.
But I also think you've got the potential of some home games with greater crowds, because if you are a fanatic of St Helens and you're told that you're playing up at Workington on a week when perhaps your team have been away in Catalan or whatever, you may well go and watch that reserve league game. And
certainly you pop to Widnes or wherever, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I certainly can't see the Championship and League One merging is kind of what I was saying.
It's not.
That's not going to happen.
Not this year.
And
might happen next year, but it certainly can't happen this year.
It wouldn't be great for them to play 3 times, because then some clubs have got to go twice to places like Cornwall. So I don't think that they have much alternative really.
They were talking about more 1895 fixtures or something.
Yeah, but
I don't know how you do
that. You create another competition somehow, or a group structure in terms of.
But then you look at Oldham, who are trying to.
But it's the same teams that you're playing over and over. That's what I'm saying.
But they're now investing in more players, moving to Boundary Park. They want to be, the Toronto, the Doncaster, the teams that have invested to get out of that division. They've already started doing that, and almost had the rug pulled out from under them through no fault of their own. That they're now being told, well, you've only got 7 other teams that you can possibly play. So if you want to,
And the sooner that decision's taken, the better for the clubs, because they can't sell anything at the moment because they don't know what's happening.
Well, they've got a meeting this week, haven't they, the League One clubs, to decide what they're going to do. And basically, they've got the problem that sitting in the room with them is the one team that they don't want to go and travel to.
Yeah.
They'll put it on mute when Eric's on. That's what they'll do.
He was here this week.
He was on Radio Cornwall the other day, so I tweeted him out, retweeted him. I mean, they could set up their own cup competition. I'm sure Fred's got a few more quid to sponsor another thing.
Well, that was the other news item, that Fred is now sponsoring for another 3 years, 25% up, which I think, we've spoken before about should you put all your eggs in one basket, is there a danger there? But the thing is, if you can get 25% more for it and a new floor for the wheelchair, then can't be all bad.
Big sticker.
Yeah, ideally we wouldn't put them all in one basket, but I suspect that there's not many other people out there that are wanting to pay the money that Fred's wanting to pay.
Which goes right back to your point as well about what's in it for clubs to sign away their constitutional right, because we need more commercial sponsors. At the moment we've got one very, very good one, and if the commercial sponsors are saying what you've got at the moment is not something we're interested in, we need to talk to them about what it is they would be interested in, and that the clubs have to accept that, because they can't generate sufficient income themselves to keep them viable. So if you're going to a broadcast partner and you're going to commercial sponsors and saying what is it about us that you don't like, rather than what is it that you do, we have to respond to that. We're being negligent if we don't, and the clubs do need to see that.
We need Mark Pearson from Betfred and the Sportsman to say we don't like the Super Hull, and then we can get rid of the Super.
The good news on that, Gemma Carter.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Going to be the new head of the Rugby League Writers and Broadcasters Association. It will now become a campaigning organisation. There will be no more Super Hull.
Right. Explain to people what that award is Dave Woods won at the weekend, because they don't know what it is.
It's the Merit Award voted for by members of the Rugby League Writers and Broadcast Association for outstanding service to the sport. Right. So they vote for a Player of the Year.
Because remember, I mentioned this the other week and I forgot to vote. Yeah.
Which was Lachlan Lamb, and a Merit Award for somebody who has given long and distinguished service to the sport.
So there you go.
That's what it was.
Welcome to the Warrington part of the programme.
There's nothing to say.
Andy says it's Wires Year. It is. Big Sammy's here. He's here.
He's not here.
They had done a picture of him in his shirt.
He was taken in Australia.
Big Sammy's not here.
He's coming.
Kevin says, as we continue the Warrington section, it's ridiculous that Williams has had his ban doubled to 2 games for appealing. He's appealing again tomorrow, and let's hope it goes to 3, because that'll be hilarious. No one's buying tickets for the Test series to see George Williams. That's no disrespect to George Williams. We'll come on to disrespect in a moment, but
why is it ridiculous? I can't even remember what you got banned for. I don't think I saw it. I don't think I saw it because I was away.
It's a shoulder charge in the St Helens playoff game.
My only query on it is, why was that considered to be frivolous? And we have had lots and lots of appeals recently that weren't considered to be frivolous. So why?
Someone on the panel doesn't like Sean Wayne, so they're winding him up. I don't know who's on the
That's the bit we don't. I think you've got to do. Everybody blame the RFL.
No, it's nothing to do with the RFL.
We have got some RFL blame to come though, so stay tuned for that.
But
Is Rob Hicks still coming in? He might not have to.
He said he's got a busy week this week.
He's going to have an even busier one.
He's hoping to be here maybe next Monday, but it depends what you're going to say. I think, you know, the process, if he's been banned for a game, the argument is then, was he properly classified? Did he deserve to be banned? I can't remember the instant having watched the game, so I don't remember a huge, you know, there wasn't a big everybody running in pulling George Williams off because he shoveled the chair. He clearly did something that was deemed to be.
Yeah, but that happens every week. There's
so
lots of
that's
charges that are
fine.
issued. You don't realise what they're for.
But what is the process around an appeal being deemed frivolous? That's the bit I don't get. And I think from the point of view of talking to somebody like Brian Noble this weekend, who's saying in no other country in the world where there is a test series coming and you want your best players on the field and you're trying to champion International Rugby League, would you stop your captain playing? Not because he's gone and done something for a second time, but because the thing he did for the first time has been deemed to be twice as bad by virtue of appeal. It's like no other nation would.
But it's almost the opposite
would not do that.
It's almost the opposite of what Wigan did for the grand final with the reserves, in that they used the reserves game to burn the ban. But in a way, wouldn't it be better if the ban only applied to the competition in which it?
Of course.
So if he's banned for 2 games, that applies to a warm-up game next year plus 1 Super League game, not a separate competition. And that isn't that the answer for Super League next year? That if that same scenario happens with Wigan, then if they've been banned from a Super League game in the game that the offence took place, then they can't play in the next Super League game.
Yeah, I suspect that will change over the course of this close season.
I guess the argument is if somebody has assaulted, say Ben Flower in the grand final, got whatever he got 6 months back. It wouldn't be right then that he plays 2 weeks later for Wales.
No.
So how do you square the circle?
Or even goes to the NRL and the ban doesn't count, because that was the issue with Corey Norman. That the French Federation were fined because he played. He was given a ban in France or something, but he came over here and didn't serve all of his ban. But the problem was with the French Rugby League because they hadn't ensured that something like that. But I don't know the exact details.
As ever,
but they were fined for it.
But as ever, things are not as simple as people make out. Is what I'm trying to say.
But by the same token, what is frivolous?
Yeah.
I can't get past the fact you said no one pulled George Williams off, and all I've got in my head is the ghost of Tommy Docherty saying he just got an orange at half time. Let's talk awards. You were there, Phil, for the Rugby League Awards, the snappily titled thing, which people watched. I wasn't going to watch it until I had a message from a fellow columnist in Forty20 magazine. The new issue of which is out this week. It's down there, look.
Fair amount of work's gone into it as well. Get all your grand final reaction.
Who said, you've got to watch this, it's dreadful. And I didn't quite write that in the magazine. It might not even be in the magazine.
It is in the magazine.
It is in the magazine. It's what he said about the awards in the magazine.
He has mentioned, I think. No, I can't remember.
I'm not
spoiling it.
But the right people won the awards, so that's all.
It's a bit like the men's grand final. If you were there, you got a different perspective on what was happening to if you were watching it on the telly. If you were there, 2 things struck you. One was, it was great to be inclusive. That we followed on from the World Cup, where we've had men's, women's, and wheelchair, which we're now going to destroy. That's another ridiculous. To having an awards ceremony that felt a lot more vibrant, a lot more colourful, because it had everybody there celebrating the sport as a whole. There was a really nice atmosphere. Even Louis McCarthy Scarsbrook scrubbed up particularly well. Thinks he's the next James Bond. The actual logistics of giving out 17 awards and a 3-course meal and having 2 stages and 3 presenters, that's a lot to manage. It's the first time. It probably would be done differently a second time.
It was always a long night when I've been before in the old format with the Man of Steel. So when I was here, when I thought, oh God, it will be a really long night. That.
And again, Ellery Hamlin was asked to give an award. He was asked to give the wheelchair award. With the greatest respect to Ellery Hamlin and the people that briefed him, it's probably not the thing that he's most knowledgeable about. He's the chairman of the Man of Steel panel. You would have thought he would have given out the Man of Steel awards. So there were things like that, and there was no order to each award. So you didn't go like League One, Championship, Wheelchair Women's Super League. It was like, now we start with wheelchair, now we start with League One, now we'll go to the Championship here, and it didn't have a coherence to it, but it was a great night for the sport, and it gave you the chance to criticise Josh Chandler's t-shirt.
Yeah, and then I spent all Saturday trying to avoid him.
Several other people saying he has the inalienable right to wear what he wants.
Because I immediately cowered back as soon as I saw him. I thought, oh, bloody hell, he's in the press room. He's hard.
I don't think he would have bothered about your criticism.
Just doesn't look great, but there you go. So well done to all the people who won awards.
It can be something if we stick with it, because I do think having all parts of the game in the same room is a very different vibe than, it's only men and they don't want to be there and they don't want to wear the suits. And
it is interesting though. It's only a couple of years ago or so that it changed format to a theatre format. With
that definitely didn't work.
It's amazing how we chop and change what we do.
Well, do you remember when the season opened once in the warehouse in Manchester, next to Old Trafford?
It was really dark. Yeah,
it was really, and we were all interviewing people in caves underneath, and then there was a band on, and again the public was involved, and then they weren't involved. But I think the format works. I think to have one night a year where you put your glad rags on.
Did Tony Sutton do a speech?
No.
So you couldn't have said anything bad about the Tongans and that sort of thing?
No.
Can't believe that's a year ago. How things change. I think that is all the news. I think it is. Although James has asked us, do we think London had less peer pressure on them given all their home games away, so most of the pressure was put on the home teams in Featherstone and then Toulouse?
I think you got to play really, really well to nil Sheffield, win at Featherstone and win at Toulouse when you're 12-0 down and 14-4 down at half time and you don't concede a point in the second half. I think that is, it's nothing to do with pressure, it's that London were the best team over that 3 weeks of the season.
We spoke about Toulouse. You watched Toulouse London. You're the only one who watched it, I'm sure. Was it a good game?
Well, I don't think I'm the only
one.
No.
On the panel.
Yeah.
I think Viaplay have got severe audience problems if I was the only one
they're
watching.
shutting down, it doesn't matter.
There was so many similarities between the way Toulouse played in the second half and the way Catalan did. And it's not just they're French, apparently they are, but tactically they so went into their shell, both teams. Their kicking games were poor. As the game wore on, they didn't have an ability to switch to a plan B. They didn't create anything in the closing 3 or 4 sets. 3 or 4 sets of the game gone. Your immediate livelihood's on the line. You might try a few Hail Mary plays, or even just keep the ball alive, and you drop the ball and you lose anyway. It doesn't actually matter. They did nothing. The last set of 6 they were caught in possession. Like, you can't do that.
You just keep it alive, like the Sundex final.
Yeah, but
like Batley did at that last try.
But Catalan didn't. Toulouse didn't. I don't think it was the pressure of the home fans. I just think it was that psychologically, for some reason, they went into their shell. The Gallic game is normally one of trying to keep the ball alive anyway. So they didn't look like the Toulouse team that certainly had played in the first half, or that you would expect to play in a certain way. And I would imagine the person that's scratching his head the most about that is their coach.
Wigan are back, potentially. Could be back, because they beat Catalans 10-2 in not the greatest ever grand final. I think everyone's pretty much confirmed that to be the case. But that's not Wigan's fault, that their game plan completely strangled the life out of Catalan's attack, which showed absolutely zilch in the game. 2 moments? We were talking about this downstairs. Tyrone May's break and Tom Jota being ankle tapped 10 metres away from his own line being the best moments of attack for the Dragons in the match. So you can't criticise the Warriors for that. 2 sin binnings in the match. We go forever without cards in the grand final, and then they're all coming up once. 2 in this game, and both the right decisions.
Well, the first sin bin the first sin bin of the grand final history was when Catalan played 2 years ago, and I was involved in that decision because that was a professional foul as well. There was no determined no try, and it was a sin bin instead. No penalty try and a sin bin, and they were just straightforward decisions as far as I'm concerned in terms of the sin bins. Steve McNamara's comment that the dangerous lift wasn't worthy of a sin bin because it was a grand final is just nonsense. they just didn't play well enough. Catalan, they didn't create, did they? They didn't create. I mean, it wasn't the most entertaining of finals. I think it's different when you're there. I was there as opposed to watching it on TV. I think I'd have been less engaged had I been watching it on TV, because you can get up from the sofa and go and make a cup of tea or whatever, or flick over on a channel. You're committed because you sat in your seat, aren't you? So
but the atmosphere was great.
But it was a good atmosphere, and the standard of play was actually good. It wasn't, if you recall a few months ago, as I was saying before.
No, this is a brilliant point.
The Challenge Cup final, people talked about it. Actually, for all it was a fantastic occasion, and went to golden point, and it was all in jeopardy in terms of the result, and it was exciting. The quality, as people generally agreed, wasn't really there. There was a lot of mistakes in that final, but that's probably glossed over with the passage of time, and people remember the goal line, the drop goal, and it becomes, it goes down in history, doesn't it, for that. But actually, in terms of quality, this grand final I thought was better. It was a better quality game. There weren't that many mistakes, but it was a conservative performance from both teams. It was, minimise your errors as best you can. It was defences on top, and there's a lot to be admired for that. And you see it very often in the top international games between the top teams. You're never always going to get a final that is the most entertaining. Is that the kind of rugby I would want to watch week in, week out? No, it's not. But I think there's a lot to be admired about the way in which, in particular, Wigan played. Because whilst it was 2-2 at half time, they were so dominant. Well, not so dominant. They were dominant in the first half, I felt. And I always felt that they would probably kick on, and the effect of the sin bin, you wondered how much that would take effect, and when that really the second card came about, it was always a question of how long can they survive, because Wigan was just so dangerous down their left edge, weren't they, on Catalan's right. Correctly ruled out for a forward pass, but then only a few minutes later they get the try. It was devoid of big moments though, wasn't it?
I just think that there is still an enjoyment in the kind of defensive performance that Wigan put on. Everybody, it's a two-sided game. If we only had attack, it'd be touch and pass.
Which is now at the Olympics, apparently.
And the stat that we accidentally uncovered on full time, which you shared with the world in the press conference,
yes.
we could have kept that for ourselves.
Yeah, but I never would have had the chance to ask if we buggered off.
That was the first time that a team had not conceded a try in a grand final. There is immense merit in that, in the way that that Wigan's defence was, had less and less thrown at it as the game went on, partly because the energy levels of Catalan through the two sin binnings and the fact they didn't have a kicking game meant that it wasn't put under extreme duress. I thought at half time we were in for a great second half, because I thought Catalan hadn't conceded whilst having that first sin binning. They'd hung in the game like they did against St Helens and had enough at the end to come back and win it, and that Wigan had been dominant in the first half but went in going, why aren't we ahead? And I thought, that sets up a really intriguing. The sin binning at the start of the second half just completely changed that. I also think, and I bow to clearly that Steve McNamara is a top coach. I think they waited too long to put Artur Morgan, because I think, again, you're talking about something that's got to change in a big game. You've suddenly gone 8-2 behind. You have to score. You've got your most creative player in terms of speed on the bench. You can't hold back. Now, his argument would be, well, all my spine was playing quite well at the time. It was only when Mitchell Pearce was injured that I could find I think you just got to find a reason to bring him on, because he needs to be out there. It doesn't matter whether you play him at full back or you play him at hooker or you play him at loose forward. You have to have that threat. And they waited till 68 minutes till they threw him on, and only because of an injury. And you thought, well, you're not going to create anything then.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right. It felt like something had to change, albeit they were only one try behind it. It's just when they got that penalty goal, the game was killed off, wasn't it? Right on. I don't know how 15 minutes, 12 minutes from the end, something like that. It killed the game for me from there.
But no, I don't think we should underestimate games where defence is. We go back to the 2017 World Cup final, Australia 6, England 0. The intensity of that game was something we don't get to see and all you could do was admire defence. And we still talk about the ankle tap, the one chance that we had. It wasn't 36-34, and clearly it would be great in some respects, if it was, but I don't even think they used the camera in the corner flag, did they? Because there weren't enough.
After all that,
I didn't. Well, you had the benefit of having the TV in front of you, didn't you? But I didn't notice it on the big screen.
TV.
I tell you, the thing is, when you've got the TV in front of you, I tend to look at the TV and think, no, the game's on in bloody front of you. Watch.
And it's always one play behind.
Yeah. So it's good to go back and say, oh, we did tip him on his head. We probably should be in the same thing. I've just seen the voting for the Harry Sutherland trophies in the paper, the breakdown.
Right.
So I don't know if I have to justify myself because I was the only person who voted for Liam Farrell. But
did you?
Yeah.
I think when you look at the stats, that is a good.
Well,
created the only try.
This is coming on to the thing. I thought in a defensive effort, he's the captain, he's the one leading it. There was no outstanding player out there for me. I vote for Liam Farrell. I was the only one. Jake Walden won it with 15 votes, Harry Smith 14. The interesting thing is, stats come out today, which is completely useless to us, because you said this at the time. I bet Morgan Smithies has made 100 tackles, made 55 with it or something. If we'd known that at the time, and during the World Cup we had the stats live available to, well, everyone had the stats available to them via the World Cup website, so I don't know why we can't have that, certainly in a grand final. Were you to have that information too, you may make a different decision. I mean, you might not have, because Jake Waddle deserved to win. No one's saying he didn't deserve to win. But
no, I think again in a game where there were very few chances, that he made something like 4 line breaks. The try came because of one of them. A disallowed try, again he set it up. You think that when you're working and trying to pick the player that's made the most impact, it's the most eye-catching play. It's not the guy that made 55 tackles, because A, you don't know that he's done it, and B, you're not sitting there counting them. You're looking at who has material. Harry Smith's kicking game was good, so that's why he got 14 votes. For me, I love it. I love the position of centre anyway. I think it's one of the most underestimated positions in the game, because I think if you're a really, really good centre, you can make so much happen. And I just thought all of the moments where you went, ooh, he was involved in it.
Jayfield got 4 votes, Liam Marshall 3, Bevan French 2.
I think Nigel Wishcar's description of Jayfield's performance, which is in the Daily Mirror today, is absolutely brilliant.
So go buy the Daily Mirror.
It's online.
Go read the Daily Mirror.
Buy the Daily Mirror anyway, but it's online if you want.
One thing I'd just say about the kicking game, because we were having this conversation beforehand, was that I'd like to see the stats on how Catalan and how Wigan usually play in terms of their kicking game, and how that differed maybe from the grand final, if it did differ, because there weren't really many balls put to ground, and whether is that typical for a grand final because the small in goals, which you saw with the effect of Tom Johnson sliding into the in-goal area and hitting the advertising board. But I can only remember one goal line dropout in the game, which was
there were 2,
which was that one when Johnson went. But because you can't build pressure by getting repeat sets off the back of a goal line dropout, which
it's too dangerous.
Which is enthralling
if you're going to give away a 7 tackle set.
Yeah.
I think you're right about the in goals, and I think it does raise the question that we started: is Old Trafford fit for purpose? As a spectator stadium, it's looking old, feeling a bit old. There are some areas where you think, oh yeah, you see Champions League football is played here. There are others where you think needs a bit of work, and you look at the pitch specification, it's not safe.
I don't think it has that destination feeling that Wembley does, because of I know there's history attached to Old Trafford, of course, but Wembley at least is moderner, it's newer. In the same way that Huddersfield is new. I know it's 30 odd years old probably now, but it's a modern facility. It was built for the purpose that it is there for now. There's plenty of leg room. When we go to Anfield, that's terrible, there's no leg room there. Ellen Road likewise, apart from the big stand, which is great, especially for in the boxes. But again, tired old stadia, they haven't been rebuilt to the standard.
But I think you're right. I'd not considered that it affects the tactics of the team. It's risk or reward, isn't it? That you go, Catalan have scored more tries from kicks than any other team this year, so it's an incredibly good part of their armoury. But if they can't use it at Ellen Road because they're being told you can't get it wrong, we don't want to keep defending 7 tackles.
At Old Trafford, you mean? Yeah, not Ellen Road. Yeah, and particularly with the weather, typical grand final weather in that, and the time of day it's played, the grass gets dewy, it gets wet, so the ball is going to skid, so it's more likely to go dead. And it goes dead, you lose. You've lost the field possession and the extra tackle off the 20. It will be interesting to track from a stats point of view back to grand finals and then look at how Wigan and Catalan usually play and how they played in the grand final, just in terms of the kicking game, because it just felt like a lot of cross-field kicks. The other thing I'd say about Wigan, I thought in the first half they perhaps were overplaying a little bit when they were playing against 12 men. They didn't seem to build the pressure to me. They just were keen to get it to the edge. Obviously they didn't have the success in the first half, but they looked like they were almost certain to score a try at one moment. Was that the tackle that you were referring to?
No, that was Mitchell Pearce.
Okay, because I couldn't tell from where I was.
Fantastic
from the
tackle, right on his own
for
goal line.
For all the world, it looked like a try.
I think that was on foul, I think.
Yeah.
Apparently, one download in South Africa doesn't get us in the charts.
Should have got the whole family to download.
Download offered and early. Kevin says Mitchell Pearce was kept quiet.
Yeah, but so was Bevan French.
Yeah. The problem with the advertising boards, someone eventually will get hurt there. That's probability that will happen. Robert is not happy. Not happy at all.
With who though?
The referee. Terrible ref and TV. Was the video ref used in the match?
There was no video ref calls. There was a restart decision on whether it's a 20 metre or a goal line dropout. That was the only, and then obviously there was input on the foul play, as there always is.
Biased against Catalans. Well, they were the two sin bins. Both of us.
I mean, I haven't watched the game on TV, so you don't see it in the same level of detail. But to me, all the major decisions looked correct.
You were not sat there in the stand thinking, bloody hell, he's had a shot.
It was handled. The game was handled. It was the same for both sides. There may be an argument that somebody might want to say that perhaps there wasn't enough whistle, or there wasn't enough set restarts. The game was slower. I have no idea. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not suggesting
there were very few set restarts. The only thing I heard as a potential criticism of the referee, and I thought he contributed to as good an occasion as we could have had, was that one of the teams was allowed to stand offside, and once that had happened early in the game, their defensive capability was aided by the fact that it wasn't the full 10 metres. I didn't see it.
Well, again, in terms of ref reviews, Opta stats the 10 metres, so that they would have access, the department would have access this week to know exactly what the average 10 metres set was that the referee set, and the average per team.
Which we'll never know.
We won't know, but I suspect it won't be significantly different because it rarely is.
No. In fact,
for me, I think as a referee, on a major final, you want to come out and let the players and the teams grab all the headlines, and I don't really think people would. Yeah, okay, people may have talked about the sin bins because they're going to do, because they were influential to the outcome, but they were correct.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is I saw a lot more on social media praising the performance of the referee than
I agree
than we normally do.
Yeah.
Normally it's only if something controversial has happened and the referee may have got it wrong, that people are actively going out of their way to say I thought the referee had a really good game.
I had this debate with Paul Cook a couple of weeks ago on that Catalan semi-final. I didn't watch the game because it was in South Africa, but I was sort of commenting generally. I was commenting generally that he was saying that the referee was contributing to certainly the first half in terms of there not being much whistle, not many set restarts, and that was contributing to the flow of the game. But I suggested he hadn't read my article about refereeing major matches in the magazine
where he also has a column.
Absolutely. That's largely down to the players and not down to the referee, because last time Catalan played at home in the playoff, it was far from free flowing, and that wasn't because I was refereeing. It may have been partly because of that, but it was mainly because the players just didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And I thought actually Catalan clearly must have learnt that lesson from last year. So they must have been far more disciplined, and they were actually, despite having two sin bins, they were disciplined on Saturday's game.
Well, the two sin bins
it can go
also,
wrong.
One's a technique thing, which again, balance and body weight and all that kind of thing, it can happen. The other one was if you hadn't done what he did, the coach would have had you in.
I thought you did exactly the right thing.
Yeah. He got beaten on the outside. What can you do? You got to do whatever you can to prevent your opposite number scoring a try. And if your team can hang in there for 10 minutes, you can come back in and make a difference, then that's fine. But if you let the opposition score because you're in an offside position and you don't tackle your opposite number, your coach will string you up.
Right, so here's a question for you, because it's just been Kevin's point out Adam Kieran's been banned for a game.
Yes.
Right?
For Wigan, ironically.
Can Catalans appeal it and get it extended?
Make a frivolous appeal.
Yeah, can they do that? Is he banned for Super League or the World Club Challenge against Penrith to be held in Las Vegas? Potentially.
Depends when.
Made that up.
It depends when the World Club Challenge is and whether the season started on. No, there'll be a friendly against Warrington. That'll count.
Yeah, it'll count. They always count. They can count one friendly as part of their ban, and so it'll count for that.
But now, Gouache, if you're watching, get that appeal in.
But just make sure it's frivolous, whatever you do.
And take the World Club Challenge to Las Vegas.
Send in French. Anything else happened on Saturday? Apart from people, more complaints I got on Twitter after the game were about the PA system being crap and they couldn't hear Reverend and the Makers, or the fact that you were supposed to stay silent.
One thing I was saying downstairs whilst we were setting up was that I think you
setting up.
Yeah.
Took the microphone and didn't move it close enough to it.
I felt that the build-up wasn't great in that the Jerusalem was played and then there just seemed to be a lull before the teams came out and people didn't know. I got the sense that people were turning around like something's wrong here, something's not going right. The teams are not out. What's happening? On TV it probably felt different because the camera was probably focused on the band and then the band introduced them. But maybe that's different if they do the same again next year because people then know what happened. But I thought they built a little bit of an atmosphere. There's a tradition there, and then the tradition was broken because they had a band. Now that band's gonna be a different band next year.
Or maybe a DJ. I like Hull KR did it earlier in the season. I can't remember who the band was.
Yes, they were on the
it was
pitch.
on Channel 4.
Yeah.
They got halfway through the song, introduced the teams, and it was great. And I enjoyed how that happened on Saturday. People prefer Jerusalem or whatever. Isn't it strange that we have hymns at finals still? Not that I would take away.
I think we have to say England's green and pleasant land before Rugby League game, don't we?
And Satanic Mills.
Dark Satanic Mills.
Light industrial units.
It used to be in the north of England when the Northern Union was.
And the other thing was that whatever that was before the game, moment silence or whatever.
Yeah, that didn't work.
It was like a balloon had just been blown up, and then somebody got a big pin and burst the balloon for me. The atmosphere was suddenly.
And it's not saying that wasn't in any way worthy of having a minute's silence.
No, I'm not saying.
It's about. You've got to explain in advance what you're going to be doing, when it's going to be.
Have something on the screen. I don't know.
The preamble was very long.
Yeah.
It wasn't a minute and it wasn't 13 seconds. So.
Because it was the same in the wheelchair final. They had a period, but it wasn't. It wasn't a minute, but it was.
You could do all the preamble before the teams come out and have it on the screen, and everybody knows what's going to happen. And then you just say, "We're now going to have the moment silence for whatever," and that's it. I just do it. Get on with it. Get on with the game. Without being disrespectful to whatever that situation is on that particular game, just because you build an atmosphere and then suddenly you drop it.
I think the only other thing to say about Saturday night was full credit to both sets of fans. Wigan turned out in massive number and were brilliant throughout, and Catalan brought double the amount of people that came 2 years ago. So they, I think there were nearly 4,000 people that within a week had booked charter flights and found a way to come over. And I just thought that to get 15,000 more than 13,000 more than the last time Catalan were in the grand final 2 years ago is a credit to them as a club for getting mobilising, for neutrals actually going and saying, well, I've got somebody who I can support, and the Wigan fans who turned out in great number.
I tell you what, there was one big advantage by Catalan being there. I got to the stadium and home from the stadium in about 50 minutes.
We didn't have any problems. We don't want
any Yorkshire teams there. We want a French team there.
Well, a Yorkshire team and a French team would be.
We didn't leave massively late though, because we didn't stay in the big zone. We just did the press and that was it. Which are up on YouTube if you want to watch them. You should, but I can't explain why. Kevin Hassani were there, 58,000.
58,137.
It was good atmosphere though, and the stadium, it's not the best, but it's good at hiding empty seats.
Yeah, it looked and felt full.
Yeah.
And I was going to say something and I can't remember what it was, but I don't think there's anything else to say about Saturday. It wasn't a game that gave us many talking points afterwards.
I want the World Club Challenge to go to Las Vegas.
Because you want to go to Las Vegas, don't you?
I'm not desperate to go to Las Vegas. I just think that if we're serious, and I understand that Matty Peake wants to go to Australia, wants to try and emulate what Wigan did in '94 and what Saints did this year, and he wants that extra challenge of taking his team to the other side of the world and being, involved in that NRL type build up to a game. But I just think if we are going to have this event in Las Vegas and there are going to be 4 NRL teams playing over a weekend, that the Friday night now should be the World Club Challenge. That isn't, Penrith aren't one of those 4 teams.
It 100% should be in Las Vegas as a piggyback. They went only the other year to Australia. They lost, didn't they? They play a Super League. Didn't they play Hull as well as a Super League match?
But
it's not like they've not done it recently.
No, it's what we were saying the other week about the NRL Grand Final was so good. It had such a worldwide impact because that was a game where, yes, the standard was high, but the drama was ridiculous. How do we graft onto that, saying we're part of the same game? We might not be at that level, but that's rugby league. Do you like that?
But as a marketing exercise,
go to America.
For neutral people, to say we have got basically the world championship game taking place to decide who is the world champion.
Yes.
Then that's.
And this is a team from England.
And they're not 2 American teams. They're really confused with that concept.
Yeah. No, I just think I don't know even if it's impossible to even plan something like this. It's March, first weekend of March, but I would love to see that game played in Las Vegas.
If we keep saying it might happen.
I know. Well, keep saying Brodie Croft might sign for Leeds. You never know, do you?
Yeah, but then they say he's not going to sign. But then they say he is going to sign. Kevin says, with lots of neutrals with Catalan tops on. Hopefully all bought from Steve Mascot, who's done his face in. Have you seen this?
He's headbutted the floor or something.
Celebrating London's win. So
that's what happens when
he's dangerous.
Yeah, he'd been off the drink for a month.
Bad news on Saturday night. Deck Roberts, his Skybox, so I assume it was Sky, didn't take the grand final, so he couldn't watch it back. Hopefully he was able to watch back yesterday's grand final, because his Wigan Warriors side beat Leeds 50 points to 42, which was more exciting because there was more tries in it.
And it went down to the last play of the game.
And there was lots of defence and stuff as well. Well done to North Wales won the championship team. I wasn't there for that, didn't get there in time for that. But
that was a fault of your driver, I think.
Yeah. Apologies to those who watched on Sky yesterday. Were seeing me all the time on the bloody telly.
You were?
In the background, I was there.
You were?
Were you in black tie?
No. With boring beige jumper. Behind the singer, behind the teams, behind everything. I may as well have been on the pitch. But I wasn't. The good news is that Wigan and Leeds were, and Wigan won, and deserved winners as well. 50 points to 42. Exciting game. Went in front for pretty much the majority of the match. Then Leeds got in front late on. He thought, that's going to happen now. And it didn't, because, a bit like last year, there you go, Wigan win. So
they were brilliant. They played with freedom. They played as if they were enjoying themselves. I think, again, if you talk about a team that was feeling pressure of being favourites, Leeds looked like it. The issue then became missed goal kicks. And an interesting comment from Nathan Collins that having a camera on his wheelchair had slightly upset the balance of it, which affected his lining up of his kick.
You used to wear those cameras on your head.
Yeah, I need all the excuses I can get to defend some decisions, don't I? It was that was awful carrying that round. Certainly the first version of it was terrible.
I just remember it just came into my mind.
I can't get a picture of Phil Bentham out of my mind with that headset on, because with a bald head.
Yeah, you'd end up with like a hot cross bun when you took it off in the summer. Yeah.
So Wigan.
I think Wigan were fantastic in that game.
And they're on all the local.
It wasn't the biggest shock ever.
No, they're on all the local.
Constantly being told, those who were watching on telly, this is the
biggest
biggest shock ever.
Let me stop and talk about Sam Tompkins, because I think he's obviously a very good player, one of the best players of his generation. Whether he's as good as Hall of Fame level, that's not for me to decide. I certainly think, obviously, he acted like a Burke early in his career, as half-backs do and whatever, and the Rectum of Wigan stuff obviously doesn't help, which seems to be airbrushed from history. But he says good things on the telly. The problem is, the whole build-up to the grand final was about Sam Tompkins. The end of the game, when Wigan have won, is about Sam Tompkins, and you wonder why people don't like Sam Tompkins. It's nothing to do with him. It's us. There were so many stories on Saturday, and all we're talking about is Sam Tompkins. Oh, Sam, it's so sad you're retiring. Give me a break.
Have another Tim Tam.
They should have G meters, says Kevin, on the wheelchairs to show how hard the hits are. They're hard, Kevin.
Declan Roberts gave a masterclass.
Yes.
I also thought Martin Lane was absolutely superb because he was drafted in
Wales
quite
is
late.
Martin Lane.
Wales is Martin
Wales
Lane.
is
And I thought Jodie Boyd-Ward was
Wales is
outstanding for Leeds.
I liked when Mark compared her to Tommy Makerson and Tom Johnson when she. I don't think she dived on purpose.
I think she did
I don't
come
think
out
it's
of the chair.
purposely.
Well, you can't dive over the line.
Well,
in
no,
wheelchair.
nowadays if you watch the documentary, which you should watch, and read about it in the magazine, she got a hand injury and I was worried, but it was just a blister. She didn't want to burst, so it's okay.
But she did have her eyebrows done. Just in case she had to lift the cup.
All the waste of time.
No, Wigan were brilliant.
Yeah.
And again, it raises an interesting question about is the week off an advantage or disadvantage? Because Leeds had an extra week to prepare, but Wigan came off a great away win at London that nobody expected to then take that form straight into the grand final. But it was the freedom with which they played, and again,
Which they admitted afterwards.
Matty Pete has to take some credit for it because apparently he went to the last training session and said, "You've done the hard work. It's the journey of getting to the final. When you get there, just enjoy it." And they played like they enjoyed it. And Matty Pete, 2 victories in one weekend.
You know, at the end of the podcast, I'll put on Declan Roberts and Jack Heggie so you can hear from them. They're on the YouTube channel already if you want to hear and see what they said after the final. Jack Heggie's got the first try of the game and the last try of the game. So he's got the last one.
Certainly scored the first. He was great.
Doesn't know if he'll be in the English squad yet. I asked him.
Should have been announced.
The coach is there.
Should have been announced today, but they've all been delayed till tomorrow
Sean
because the England men's players are still having medicals apparently. But we know Tom Johnson's going to be in the 24.
But and Victor Radley because he was here.
And Victor Radley.
Wait, Victor Radley, he was doing the promo on the
Tom Burgess.
It's a good job they put someone with such a strong English accent to do the promo to the crowd, wasn't it?
You see, I didn't pick up on any of that either
No.
because the sound system, I don't think, enabled me to do it.
Where was James Bentley though? That's the big question.
He won't be in the 24.
No. But well done to Wigan. You've won 2 things and the reserve grand final, but that doesn't count. So you can't be giving you that.
Great weekend for the cherry and wine.
Yeah. And what is interesting is, so Leeds got their league leaders shield yesterday for winning the.
Which again, I don't
Division.
think should be presented before a grand final because that's taking your focus away a
It's
little
a bit
bit.
like when York got theirs last year in the Women's Super League after they'd played a semi-final. What if they'd lost?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's really got to be on the last league game of the season.
Why
present
wasn't
them.
it presented then?
was it still up in the air with that? I can't remember. Or you could have presented it at a training session or something. But now here's the equality and stuff, right? Most inclusive sport in the world, all this jazz. Oh, it was the World Cup, wasn't it? I forgot about the World Cup. Wigan's men won the League Leaders Shield. Presented on the telly, medals. York's women, League Leaders Shield, got medals. Leeds Rhinos wheelchair team win the League Leaders Shield, no medals. So, RFL, pull your fingers out and get them some medals. There must be some spare ones somewhere in the cupboard. You give them all to match commissioners and stuff, so there must be some spare ones.
That's often a sort of subject amongst match commissioners.
What, then they get a medal? Or
That they do, that they may or not have, there may have been a period where they may not have got them, or weren't allowed up on a ceremony board to get them, and all the rest of it. But yeah,
All they do is just stand there at the side of the pitch and go.
That's your 8th substitution. Don't have any more, unless it's an academic.
So RFL sort it out. There must be some spare medals around, surely, because we
Well,
know
we used to have spare League
League
Leaders
Shields,
shields,
yeah,
didn't we?
in Nigel's cupboard, yeah. So come on.
I think you make a fair point though. If whatever you do now for the men's and the women, it has to be the same, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they're not made of gold, are they? They're just made
No,
of
they're not.
special
I can
Chocolate.
tell you that. They're not.
Well, I said if you don't.
They're not as good as they were a number of years
They're not made
ago.
by Fattorinis anymore. whatever it's
No, I
called.
don't think they are. They were. I've got Fattorini medals, but they're not. The more recent ones weren't.
They're the ones you've got insured. The new.
They're the ones that are going on eBay.
Yeah. Keep seeing. Yeah, what's going on? So yeah, RFL sorting out. Come on, they deserve medals. I mean, I'm not paying for them, but
New Betfred deal.
yeah, Fred.
New floor for
Fred.
wheelchair. Set of medals.
Get some medals. We'll present them. They can come into the show. We'll give them the medals.
Well,
what a great experience.
James Simpson is supposed to be coming on.
Is he coming on now?
Yeah. Well, I think he always was, but
There was a point yesterday. I told Phil this downstairs. I interviewed him after the game, and I hate interviewing the losing teams after finals because you don't want to speak to anyone, would you? And in fairness to James, he spoke to everyone he wanted to speak to. And halfway through the second or third question, he goes, "What would you have done differently?" You're thinking, I'm speaking to a bloke here who had his legs blown off in the war. Tells you about it on the documentary, and I'm saying, what would you have done differently? What are we doing?
perspective.
And I was going to say that to him, and I thought, because it's just me being a Burke. But there you go. So I think that's it, isn't it? I think that is it. Well done to all the winners. The Test series starts this week, Kevin. It starts
On Sunday. In St Helens. 2:30 kick-off. Be there. We need to sell these games out.
Any news on Darryl Powell? Apparently he's at Bellevue. That's what I've been told.
Cutting the lawn.
But we haven't got any on yet, so I don't know about that. Apparently some players as well. Farewell Ian Lennigan.
Yes.
As Eric Pollard goes off into the distance. It was over. Stud Still says, good point about Sam Tompkins. It was overkill, especially when you consider Ian Lennigan was leaving Wigan. What a fabulous chairman he's been for the club. Yeah, it's not,
He has.
I don't mean to say it as it's not a criticism of Sam Tompkins. It's a criticism of us as the media. For so many things we can talk about, and we just got fixated on one for the last few weeks.
Although he did speak very well,
It does,
and I must say,
and he's good on Channel 4. Really enjoyable on Channel 4.
yeah, must say that Catalan were very magnanimous losers, and Saints were equally as impressive when they lost at Catalan. But then your argument would be James Roby shouldn't have been interviewed after the Catalan had beaten St Helens.
Well, probably say that as well. But they had that nice photo with him, with all the trophies and stuff. That looked good.
Did their media manager set that up?
Possibly.
He's quite good.
He's good, isn't he? He's having a nice holiday.
Is he on holiday?
Well, I don't know, but
Won't he be involved in the game at St Helens this week?
he might be there tomorrow.
Are you going to the Test series? Are you
I've not got any tickets yet, so I don't know.
Does this come out of the retirement package?
This shows how far out of touch I've been the last couple
Where
of
have
weeks.
you been?
I just had to look on the fixtures to see, and I thought, is it this weekend it starts? And I looked on Saturday, I thought there's no game, so it must be the week
Right.
after.
It's
So
on Sunday.
I've just learnt something. It's this week.
It's the very special first Test in St Helens, Richard Shorewhite 43rd birthday special match. So
It's your birthday
it's
next
my
month.
birthday on Sunday, so
Oh, we'll bring cake.
43, jeez. I should be retired. So yeah, it's the Test series this week. Squad announced tomorrow.
Yes.
Squads.
Yes.
Or
Men's,
women
women's
and
wheelchair, I think.
first Test, St Helens. Second Test, Huddersfield. Third Test, Leeds. Plus England versus Wales women. Plus on the Sunday, England versus France. Which, if you haven't watched the documentary,
Wheelchair. FD Arena.
it's a shame it's not a 3-test series or something.
You should bring
Harris.
Harris to the
Just-
wheelchair,
just-
yeah. At the FD Arena.
He likes the ice hockey.
Bonfire night.
Right.
All leagues will
Proper
be lit up with
fireworks.
fireworks.
I mean, that's just every night.
Yeah.
Some areas of Leeds.
They've arrived.
And we're going. We'll be back next week with the review of the first Test. And we haven't even mentioned all the stuff in Australia, but they play to their own rules. So
International season started in Australia. Catch up with it. It was great. It's all in the mag.
it's all on YouTube as well. Download the podcast, please, and buy the magazine out Friday. Thursday,
Be in shops
Friday.
on Friday.
There you
Subscribers might get it Thursday.
Perfect if you